أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وصلى الله على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الإخوة والأخوات، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, I would like to offer my condolences on the heart-rending martyrdom anniversary of Fatemeyeh Zahra, Salamullahi alayha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 54, says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, man yartadda minkum an dineh, fasawfa ya'ti Allahu biqawmin yuhibbuhum wa yuhibbunah, adillatin ala al-mu'minin, a'izzatin ala al-kafirin, يجاهدون في سبيل الله ولا يخافون لومة لائم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. If you want to talk about the characteristics of Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha and features of this outstanding lady, there would be many topics that we can talk about. For example, with respect to the status, spiritual status of Fatemeyeh Zahra, the scientific and the significant knowledge that she owned. Also, we can talk about the fada'il and the virtues of Fatemeyeh Zahra sallallahu alayha. For example, what we read in Hadith al-Kisa, for which she is the access. This tradition or this hadith, Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha, is the access of this very famous and very important hadith when Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to introduce those people gathered under that kisa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to this tradition, says that hum Fatimatu wa abuha wa ba'luha wa banuha. So she plays a very pivotal role in that hadith. So there are many issues and many topics that we can talk about with respect to the lady Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha. But the topic that I'm going to talk about today with respect to Fatemeyeh Zahra, which I consider it or maybe one of the most important characteristics and features of Fatemeyeh Zahra, is the social and political activities that she exercised at her time, which played a very important role at that time, also in the history of Islam and later. So social and political activism that we can see in the life of Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha. So after the demise of the Holy Prophet, we know what happened. And Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha didn't remain silent and didn't remain indifferent towards those happenings that happened at that time. She did whatever she could in order for writing the rhymes and in order for rectifying what was happening at that time to the heritage of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the Islamic Ummah in general. So, and it was not just some reactions, here and there. She did whatever she could do, and whatever that could be possibly done by a person, she tried her best to do it. So, for example, we see that those sermons given by her in different occasions, especially in the Prophet Mosque in the Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. Also going to the homes of Muhajirin and Ansar and reminding them of the allegiance that they pledged with Ali ibn Abi Talib, and tried to convince them to support Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. She also, when saw that that's not working and they're not going to help Ali ibn Abi Talib, even with her mourning ceremonies that she had for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she did it in a certain way, so that it could be understood as a sort of objection and protest against the deviation that was going on at that time. And also she stopped talking to those people who were responsible for the deviations that were happening after the demise of the Holy Prophet. And maybe the last measure that she took was stating the fact that after her demise and after her shahada, in her will, Lady Fatemeyeh Zahra stated to Ali ibn Abi Talib that her funeral and her funeral service and whatever that pertains to the funeral of her, it should be kept in dark, and nobody of those people who wronged her and wronged Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, and made all those deviations after the demise of the Holy Prophet, take part in her funeral, even by stating that her grave should be hidden and should not be publicized, should not be known by the public. This way she made a sort of rejection and objection against the oppression and the deviation that happened. And it was not just for that time. Even now, any free-spirited person who asks himself or herself that where the grave of the only daughter of the Holy Prophet is, when it's unknown that the grave of the only and merely daughter of the Holy Prophet, where is that grave? It's a very big question mark for every free-spirited Muslim. So these were some of the measures that she took against the oppression, against the deviation that was happening at her time. She did whatever she could in order for defending her husband and the Imam of the time, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. So this social and political activism that she was exercising and she was presenting at her time was so outstanding. And even though that she was a woman and she was so eager for protecting her chastity and protecting the haya and affa of herself, but it didn't make a sort of obstacle for her to attain and to join these social and political activism that she was supposed to do. So this is what I think is one of the most important characteristics of Fatemeyeh Zahra sallallahu alayha, and is a very good lesson for us, for the ones who claim to be the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, especially the follower of Fatemeyeh Zahra sallallahu alayha. Occasionally, we find some Muslims, some Shia brothers or sisters, whether in Muslim countries or in non-Muslim countries, that are not that much caring about social and political duties of them. Unfortunately, this sort of secular Shiism that has been developed in some parts of the world. It may not be that much prevalent in some countries, but it is, unfortunately, it do exist in some countries, unfortunately. It may not be that much, but there are some people who are so known, and people have a good respect for some people who unfortunately have a sort of secular understanding of Shiism. They do not care that much about the political and social problems that are going on in their community or their country or in the world, in an international sphere. And I believe that doesn't go aligned with the tradition and with the conduct, the sunnah of the Holy Prophet, neither with the sunnah of Fatemeyeh Zahra and the seerah of Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha. So remaining silent towards the oppression that is going on in their country, remaining indifferent and silent, and even sometimes getting along, and even sometimes justifying those oppressions and deviations. I believe that doesn't go in line with the seerah of Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha. And I believe that, inshallah, we as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam, we have to try our best to follow them in their conduct and in their akhlaq and their seerah of life. And not just being sort of, Shia in words, our names, just attending the majalis of Imam al-Hussein salatu wassalam, mourning Imam al-Hussein. That is good and that is necessary for sure. But is it just, is the Shiism just to attend the majalis of Imam al-Hussein salatu wassalam, or it's more than that? You have to follow the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam. Fatemeyeh Zahra, as far as I understand her life and the conduct of the Fatemeyeh Zahra salamullahi alayha, was so active politically and socially, and she did whatever she could do in order for standing against oppression, deviations, and whatever bad that was going on in her time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the verse that I recited in the Quran, in the first part of my talk, one of the characteristics of the mu'mineen, the real one, the true mu'mineen, is that يُجَاهِدُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَا يَخَافُونَ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. So they struggle in the path of Allah, and they are not afraid of anybody in anything. In doing their duties, they don't, they are not afraid and are not intimidated by people. Some of us, unfortunately, in some maybe even Muslim countries or non-Muslim countries, we're afraid of the reaction we may receive from the community or the country that we're living in, or I don't know, whatever that source of intimidation is. But that is not the characteristics of those people who are true believers. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to become the real and true Shias of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam, and help us to try our best in the social and political activities that we are supposed to carry out, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.